What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you all. And today I want to talk a little bit about the Steelers quarterback situation, where we stand here in the middle of May, 2 weeks out from OTAs, about a month out from mandatory minicamp, and about 2 months out from training camp. So let's talk about it. I haven't talked about the quarterback situation much recently. And after the schedule's release, I think it's reasonable to kind of reset things because the schedule clearly was kind of the middle ground, I think, in trying to prepare for an Aaron Rodgers signing, but also look for the intriguing matchups where if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign, it doesn't affect the Steelers or the schedule too much. So let's talk about this. And the Steelers certainly, when you look at their quarterback room, they're going to add another one, and I think it's going to be a veteran. Now, well, that's going to be a veteran of stature of Aaron Rodgers, he's really the only one that has the four-time MVP Hall of Fame gravitas. You could trade for Kirk Cousins. I guess you could sign Carson Wentz. Not a lot of appealing options out there outside of Rodgers, and even Rodgers, how appealing really is Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old, coming off one of the worst seasons of his career. Even though the stats look really stunning and sterling and clean, the tape definitely reveals some issues in his game. But he still has the flashes of great arm talent. He still has the football IQ, of course. So there's still things there with Aaron Rodgers, and there were stretches of play specifically toward the end of the year where you could talk yourself, okay, year two off the Achilles, maybe this could be the year Aaron Rodgers actually returns and has a bit of a renaissance, a la Brett Favre, funnily enough, and then maybe you can get something out of this. So you could talk yourself into Aaron Rodgers, I think pretty easily just because of the pure talent, the guy he is. But this has been going on 2 months now, and you still don't have a clear answer. Now, here's the thing. Rodgers and the Steelers are in consistent communication with one another. I think that's something to note. There's a mutual understanding here between those two sides that Steelers are giving Rodgers space to kind of decide, feel things out for himself. The Steelers are still waiting. They're going to evaluate their options. They've done work already on other options in preparation for the potential Rodgers retirement or whatever happens. He just chooses to wait. There's a lot of things that could happen with this Aaron Rodgers situation that the Steelers are trying to prepare themselves for. So if he doesn't sign, they'll have to pivot from here. Here's the real thing. Rodgers signing whenever it is, whether it's before mandatory minicamp, before OTAs, before training camp, I think it has to come before training camp. That is the one thing I very much feel very strongly about. It would be ideal to have him there for OTAs and minicamp. Certainly there for minicamp, I think. If he doesn't want to come to OTAs but would want to be there for minicamp, that's where I think you would really want him in. But training camp to me is a must. You have to have your starting quarterback in there day one of training camp just to build chemistry, run the offense, etc., etc. That guy has to be in there. So that should be a deadline for me if I'm the Steelers. I mean, listen, waiting this long already is a little long for my tastes. But if you are going to wait for him, that is the last time. Training camp is the deadline for me. If he is not signed by the first day of training camp, I do not see a path to that happening. But from what we've been hearing, it sounds like it's a when, not if. It sounds like Rodgers is going to eventually sign with the Steelers. It's just it's carrying on and carrying on, and there's been theories why. Did they want to wait till the schedule was released so they had less primetime games and then have a grueling schedule with holidays on it and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Potentially, but I don't think that's the main motivation. Is some of it because Rodgers likes the attention? I'm sure it is. He's an enigma, but certainly that has been a creed of his over his career. Is it because he's dealing with this personal issue that he said on the Pat McAfee show, and he's communicated with that with teams? Probably as well. From what I've heard, everything he said on the Pat McAfee show is communicated with the Giants and the Steelers, so that lines up. So basically, the Steelers are just kind of waiting for him to figure out when he's ready to make that decision. And if they have to move on before training camp, they will. Because I don't think they're going to go into training camp without four. So that is a deadline to me, the first day of training camp. But when will he decide? I don't know. And I think that's the biggest question. There's this uncertainty about it. And I do think the schedule reflects some of that uncertainty even from the NFL's eyes, right? When you only put them in four primetime games, even though they have two late afternoon windows and a standalone international game, that's a lot for the Steelers. That's the Steelers brand, though. The Steelers are an iconic NFL brand. They're a worldwide franchise. They're a national brand. And every year since Mike Tomlin's been coach, they have a winning record. So they're always in contention. They're always in games that matter. So putting those games that matter on the bucket list and on the Sunday night football, Monday night football, the 425, 430 windows, it makes a lot of sense. The Steelers have always been playoff relevant late into the year. And so they always do that. And so it kind of makes a lot of sense to put the Steelers in that bucket. And so that's not Rodgers related necessarily. Now, I do think some of that is Rodgers related, but I also think some of it is just kind of, hey, if he's there, it gets even better. The Jets in week one, does it seem like Rodgers? Sure. But if he's not there, it's still at worst Justin Fields versus his former teammates in the 1 o'clock window. It's not like it's a Sunday night game, a Monday night game. It's not a prime time matchup. And then, you look at Packers Steelers. I mean, that's two iconic brands anyways. Packers Steelers is Packers Steelers. So I just look at that and say not all of it's correlated to Aaron Rodgers. And here's the thing about the Steelers' quarterback situation this year, guys. It's not going to pop out at you. I mean, Rodgers has his deficiencies. Rudolph has his issues. Will Howard is a sixth round rookie, and even if you want to see what he does, he'll go through growing pains. Every rookie does. Doesn't matter if you're the first overall pick or a seventh round pick, let alone a sixth round pick. So really, all of that is going to come together. Whichever route the Steelers choose, whether it is Rodgers trading for Cousins, I hate the idea of trading for Cousins. I do not understand the idea to trade draft capital from next year when you're trying to get a quarterback for a stopgap vet this year. Just go with Mason at that point to me. Do not really understand the point of that. Signing Rodgers at least doesn't affect your compensatory pick formula. Never did, of course, which is part of the whole plan this offseason was to sign guys that didn't affect the comp pick formula, build up comp picks. They have five picks in the top 100 next year, or at least first 2 days of the NFL draft. They are projected to have five picks there. So that's a lot. And we know that their long-term plan is trade up for a quarterback or they're bad enough, stick and take a quarterback next year. It's basically telegraphed as it could be. They are in the hunt for the quarterbacks in 26. Okay. But this year, it's not going to be a great quarterback. It just is not. Rodgers, even if he has the sparkles of talent, is a complete lottery ticket, and that's what you can say, about him right now. If he hits, great. He could be really good, and the Steelers could have a chance here. If he's bad, the Steelers could have their first losing season under Mike Tomlin. Mason Rudolph, again, high floor more so than anything. But this is a guy that's a really good backup to, at his best, a low tier starter. You watch his tape last year in Tennessee, and obviously it's Tennessee. It was a terrible situation, but the tape was not great. And I do think, the three games at the end of 2023 were obviously great. He Steelers put him in a solid environment there, and you can win games with him. You can win 8 to 9 games with Mason Rudolph in the ideal circumstances. You can also lose 11. And so the Steelers definitely have I think a higher floor with Rudolph in some respects. If he starts, then say they do with Howard, if they played Will Howard, just because what does a sixth round rookie in a large sample size even look like? I think that's the big question. And then you get to Will Howard, who is he's a sixth round rookie, guys. I mean, I understand there's a lot of people that have high expectations for him, but first of all, I want to see how he looks in OTAs and training camp just to start off. I just want to evaluate him in person, see how that all looks. But you can't expect him to be the next Tom Brady. You can't expect him to be the next Brock Purdy. Now, if he is, wonderful, great. That solves that issue for you. But that's obviously not the baseline expectation for any team that drafts a sixth round quarterback. And he has some really good fits with this offense. The deep ball, the fact that he can move a little bit. He's very similar to Rudolph in a lot of ways and kind of how he throws the ball, the areas he likes to target. They both can throw those slants, those digs, things that DK Metcalf likes. It's a good mesh point between those two quarterbacks and DK Metcalf. But they need another receiver on top of this. So the quarterback room right now it's just going to be a hodgepodge, guys. It's going to be that. Doesn't matter if Rodgers is here or not. It's not going to be an inspiring room. And Rodgers, taking this long to decide, it adds the whole nother layer on it. And so I know a lot of people already are like, don't sign him, don't sign him. Well, they're clearly head over heels and going straight for the Rodgers train. And if they get derailed on that, we'll see kind of where they go from there. I expect another vet to come in. That is, again, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz. Neither of those names sound great, and you are completely correct. But this year is kind of that bridge year to the quarterback that they're going to try and land in 26. So long-term vision at the quarterback position, but the short-term fix, that's the question. So this is going to be a year of suffering through quarterback purgatory yet again, whether that is with Rudolph, whether that is with Rodgers, or if you're trying to figure out what you have in a young guy in Howard at some point this year. We will see how it all goes. But right now, Steelers quarterback room is definitely not inspiring, and it's not going to be really no matter what. So just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out there after the schedule release. Steelers certainly this year could go, in their usual 9-8, 10-7 cycle. I think that's fairly realistic to expect somewhere around there. Even if they have that losing season, are they really going to be, 5-12? Probably not. They'll probably be, 7-10, 8-9, somewhere in there, where it's not really that bad, right? They'll pick, even if they go 7-10, they'll probably still pick like 13th or 14th. That's still talking about trading up into the top 10 probably and still giving up your first rounder to go get your quarterback. So there's a lot of variables here. The Steelers are probably going to be a little bit more high variance this year, I think, than most other years. Like last year, I didn't think there was a ton of variance. Thought they would end up somewhere in that 11-6, 8-9 range, and they obviously ended up at 10-7. I thought that was right about where they would this year. They could probably go a little bit more all over the map, but certainly I think the shaping up with Rodgers signing, if Rodgers signs, I think that would shape up for exactly the season we have seen significantly over the past few years, which is that 9-8, 10-7 type season, and then a wild card exit. All right, everybody, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bell for more. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be back for more tomorrow.